This is Glambition Radio, episode number 205 with productivity expert Tonya Dalton. Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and mom of twins. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are rewriting the rules for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And we're doing it with style. Let's go. You know of FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Well, how about JOMO, the joy of missing out? I first heard this term from Tonya Dalton as she was becoming a client of mine and was really just blown away by the whole different approach she has to productivity. Because as you go back through time, you realize most of the productivity programs and time management and all this stuff was created by old corporate guys. And Tonya's a mom. Tonya has a company. Tonya has this whole different perspective on aligning all of our life into one plan, because women do not compartmentalize all this stuff. This is our life. And man, if there ever was a time that we're dealing with all of this at once in our face, it's now during COVID, as so many of us listening are homebound. We have our work in front of us. We have our kids in front of us. We're figuring out, how to get a meal on the table. Just there's so much going on that, there's no choice but to look at this as one streamlined plan. And that's why it's perfect timing to get her on the show right now. Tonya has been featured in renowned entrepreneurial media, including Inc, Entrepreneur, and Forbes. She is also a coveted member of The Trust, my new private premier network for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. If you or another female leader you know is craving more powerful connections, more elevated conversation, and a really modern platform for connecting with other high-performing women globally, visit jointhetrust.org. We would love to tell you what's going on behind the scenes for us, both virtually and later this year with some powerful events. That's jointhetrust.org. And a quick shout out to 2 reviews that my team pulled for me from iTunes. LJGK from the US says 5 stars. I go to Allie to hear both her perspective as well as get inspiration from her incredible guests. Allie's a disruptor. In all the good and challenging ways disruption shakes up our lives. She combines down-to-earth practical guidance coupled with profound, deeper truths, all wrapped up in being the best entrepreneur we can be and looking good while doing it. I'm going to hire you as a copywriter, LJGK. And Clarice Gomez from the US writes that Glambition highlights all aspects of business and more. It's a can't miss podcast. Thank you. All right, let's get ready for getting organized, getting prioritized, and getting our shit together. Get ready for a great conversation with Tonya Dalton. Tonya, I'd like to know where you are right now.
I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains.
And you working out of the office today or home?
I'm at home today, actually, which is nice.
You're home. The joy of missing out.
That's right. Joy of being at the office.
On your whole damn company as we record this. So we're not going to talk about any of the stuff going on right now. We're going to set the intention that we're moving forward.
Yes.
But just quick question though, with everything happening, this quarter, obviously, and going into the next quarter in the businesses in the world, do you feel your advice is still applicable? The joy of missing out, like everyone's so busy and now a lot of people aren't busy. What's your angle on that?
Oh my gosh, more than ever. I truly think this is the message people need to be listening to right now, because we get so caught up in the busyness rather than the business of what we're doing. And we get in this work mode. And right now, where we are in the world right now, we've kind of had to take like a sudden emergency brake stop. And while I wouldn't recommend that kind of an abrupt stop like we've had, this has been kind of refreshing to watch how people are saying, wow, this is really kind of nice that I'm getting more time with my kids. I'm recognizing the importance of things like family mealtime. I'm recognizing that maybe I don't need to work on all of these things, that there are fewer things I should focus in on. So I think what's been really nice and what I think will really come of this, because I really think it's important, especially in times like these, let's focus on what's the good that's going to come out of it. There's always going to be shit times in our lives, let's be honest. But there is a lot of good that comes out of these times. The realization that, life continues on even when business stops, or that we are someone outside of who we are at the office, and that we have all these other roles to play. And now it's been kind of forced in front of us. I think this can end up being a good thing, that we can start to really look for the harmony. You know how I feel about balance, that we got to get rid of balance. We can look for that harmony in our life of finding more time at work and at home. Because truly, to me, that's what the joy of missing out is about. It's about, being our best version of ourselves so we can pour ourselves 100% fully into work when we're in work mode, and then pour ourselves 100% fully into our personal space, into those people that are important to us.
It has kind of been a reset, I think, for humanity in general. I'd say especially American lifestyles and how, busy and work obsessed we are compared with much of the world, not some of it, but a lot of it. And it's interesting to see, even Brett, my husband, on the weekend, because there are no sports, and I feel bad for people who really love the sports. He's downstairs doing he's doing his art again. He's painting these beautiful paintings and stuff again that he hadn't really touched at because he was working on his business. He was helping with some of my stuff. And it's these little things that I do feel, I think are going to change, not everything forever, but some people will be very affected in a good way.
I think so too. I love that Brett's, reconnecting with a passion of painting. For me, I've been spending a lot of time cooking, which is something that I am really passionate about and really spending more time doing. And so it really is that we're intentionally creating that space for ourselves right now. And so hopefully these repercussions will go long after we survive this crisis, because we're going to survive it. We're going to get through it. If we're running our businesses the way that they're meant to be run, they really are recession proof. They're ready to go. And so I think that's really what's important, is what's the good that we can pull out of this situation in the long run.
Now, I didn't know who you were until your book had already come out by the time we met. So can you give people a little backstory into kind of how you became Tonya Dalton of today? The expert, the productivity expert?
Yes. Well, so I started my first business. This is kind of an interesting story. I started my first business with $50 in the middle of my kitchen, where I was, thinking it would be fun to start a business because my husband was traveling the world. My husband has an MBA with a marketing specialization, and he was doing international marketing for Fortune 500 companies. And so I thought, you know what, I need something to do other than just mommying, for goodness sake. So I'm gonna start, this business on the side. And then I had a conversation with my husband, who was on the other side of the planet, telling him all the things that the kids were doing, because at the time my kids were, knee high. They were playing at my feet. And so we're having this conversation, and he said to me, "I'm missing everything." And I said, no, you're not. And he said, "No, I am. I'm not able to be hands-on dad that I really want to be." And so after we hung up the phone, I did my best to help him feel better, but we hung up the phone. And I stood in the middle of my kitchen, and I made a decision right then and there, looking at my kids playing on the playground, in the backyard. I decided I was going to grow my business to the point where I could absorb my husband's income and he could come work alongside of me. Now, I'd never had, a single business course. I had never, I didn't have my MBA like he did, but I set that audacious goal for myself. And I sat down that night. I started figuring out, okay, how am I going to make this work? Because I have two small kids, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I have a husband who travels for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. But I was able to make that goal happen. Within about a year, I was able to absorb his MBA income. He quit working in corporate America, came and worked alongside of me, which allowed us to move to Asheville, North Carolina, which is where we live now. And I loved it. I loved that we worked together, but I didn't love what we were doing. I didn't feel like I was really doing what fulfilled me and what I was passionate about. So I looked at him in the fall of, I think it was like 2013, and I said to him, "I love you. I love working with you, but I don't love what I'm doing." And he's like, "Okay, well, what is it you want to do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. I have no idea what it is I want to do. I know I love business. I know I love creating business, but I don't know what it is I'm really passionate about." So I had to really create some space for myself to dive in and dig into who I really am and what I'm truly passionate about. And through this process, I found there were 3 things. First of all, I'm passionate about teaching. I love teaching. I used to be a teacher. I'm always teaching, no matter where I am or what I'm doing. Somehow I'm teaching. I love working with women and empowering them. I was doing a lot of small business coaching, helping other women grow their businesses the way that I had grown mine and scaled it up at that point to 6 figures. And then I also loved productivity because that's what allowed me to grow my business while still being a really hands-on mom at the same time. So I had these three things that were seemingly completely unrelated. And the thread that connected the three was inkwell Press, the company that I started, which is focused on productivity for women to really help them live their best life, to grow their businesses, to feel really successful in their workspace while still feeling really successful in their home sphere. So I created inkwell Press and closed my other business, started with an email list of 0 because I felt like I needed to start all the way over from scratch. And I scaled that business to 7 figures in 18 months with 3 employees, me, my husband, and one other person. And so, as this has grown, I've been able to expand and do even more of my teaching, more of the coaching that I love to do, more with my podcast and more with different services beyond what we create with our physical products. So we sell planners, weekly planners, daily planners. We sell them at Office Depot, Office Max. We sold in Barnes & Noble, Amazon, also online in our own storefront. And then we also have this whole other arm that's really the service side of, I don't want people just to get a planner. I want people to really affect a change in their lives, to be able to live the life that I've been able to lead, doing what I love, feeling excited about getting up for work every single day while still feeling good about what we're doing in our personal lives. I think that's really important. And I feel like that's where so many productivity experts fail us.
When you look at too, they've all been over history, it's been the male, corporate type, advice that's never worked for women, even in corporate, right? And then now we're inventing all these new models and we have no model for productivity. And when I saw what you were doing, I'm thinking, this is brilliant. This is the first thing I've seen that really is designed for women like us. Can you talk for a minute about how you believe the balance is BS? And you say we can take charge of our destiny only when we let go of balance. I feel like that's at the core of what you are trying to get across. And I'd love you to share more about that.
Absolutely. And I love what you said there, because I have to tell you, when my book went to auction, the thing that the publishers were most excited about is they were telling me, all these different publishers, this is the first book written for women by a woman on true productivity, on a full productivity system. It's never been done before.
Yeah. And you're still alive, systems are from old dead guys.
It's insane. When you think about all the things that women do and how truly when we're productive, we're really able to, live our best lives. That was crazy to me. I didn't even realize it when, we first started working on the proposal and everything else. I really was able to lean into these messages and that really hit women where we are. Because let's be honest, women do think very differently than men do. The way that our brains work, it's been scientifically proven. We think differently. And so to be able to really lean into that was really such a gift. And I love that I was able to do that through The Joy of Missing Out. But as you mentioned, one of the things that we talk about in the book is you got to get rid of balance. It's this myth that we're constantly chasing. And truly, we don't want balance. We think we're supposed to want balance. We think that we should be, chasing after this balance. When really, if we're perfectly balanced, we're not really moving in any direction. Because truly, if you want to grow in any area of your life, whether that's your work life, your personal life, or your home life, we need to lean into that priority. We need to give it more time, more energy, and more focus. Well, you can't do that if you're not taking away time, energy, and focus from one other area. So we need to lean in, and then we need to counterbalance. It's kind of like riding a bike. So you can ride a bike and be perfectly balanced. And that's great as long as you want to stay on that same old path, going in that same direction, right? But if you want to choose where you go, if you want to choose to go left, you have to lean over to the left. Now, you can't stay leaned over for too long because you'll fall over. You'll scrape your knee. You have to counterbalance. So you lean for a while and then you counterbalance. And then when you want to turn right, you'll lean to the right and then you're going to counterbalance. And that's really what we're looking for, is this series of leaning into work for a time and then counterbalancing, and then maybe leaning into our family for a time, and then counterbalancing, and then leaning into a personal goal, and then counterbalancing. And it's this ebb and flow of this is really how life works. If we're perfectly even and equal in all areas, we're not moving really anywhere we want to go. We're just following that same old path, even if it's not the path we truly want to be on.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's an example of where you had to do that with your business or your life? I'm sure there's many times.
Oh my gosh. It's a constant, shifting of balance, right? Like leaning in when you're launching something, that's a time where you're leaning into business. So a good example is, the book came out in October of 2019. And so prior to October, I really leaned hard into my family, kind of compartment, like giving as much as I could to my family and carving out big spaces of time to do things with my kids, telling them that in October, things are going to get a little bit nuts.
Mommy's here now because she's not going to be here at the book launch.
Exactly.
Totally.
So that's part of it too, is communicating these things with your team, or your family. I like to call your family part of your team because they really are. So communicating that to them. So then when it got into launch mode with the book, I felt good. I did it guilt-free, leaned fully into that book launch mode, worked on that for several months. And then after a couple of months, I leaned back, and then I started leaning into my home life again once more. And so it's this constant act of really looking ahead of where it is I want to go. Okay, if I want to lean into work really hard in 2 months, then right now I want to lean into these other areas because I'm counterbalancing in preparation for it. And then I'm going to lean into this work area. And then afterwards, I'm going to have some recovery time, and I'm going to pour myself fully into my family or into my friends or whatever it is that's truly important to you, leaning into it. So it's constantly this act of leaning and counterbalancing and leaning again and counterbalancing once again. And I think when we do that, we can do this guilt-free. And I think that's the key here. We feel so guilty. We feel guilty when we're not working on our business. We feel guilty when we are working on our business, right? We feel guilty if we haven't done enough, if we should have done enough. And so we need to get rid of some of those feelings of guilt. And by recognizing that you're leaning and you're going to counterbalance and you're going to lean again, that really helps alleviate some of that stress and that frustration that we feel as women. I think it's really important because if we're feeling guilty, are we really giving our best, fullest selves to whatever it is we think we want to work on? If I'm spending time with my family, I want that to be 1000% me, all in, because that's what they deserve. And quite frankly, that's what I deserve. But what else deserves that? My business. My business deserves that when I'm ready to lean into it, I'm giving it 1000% of me, because that's when I know my business is going to grow. That's when I know that I'm on fire with what I'm doing, because here's the truth. I love working. I'm not ashamed of that. I love doing business. I love growing my business, but I also love my family. It's not an either or situation. It's an and. I can love both and feel good about it whenever I'm spending time in each.
So what's your advice for, a lot of the women I work with, who many the common theme, no matter what level you're at, and I'm thinking, whether you're at 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, is there's always overwhelm, because even if the business is on track, there's like family stuff going on, or the world happens to be a shit show, which it is right now. And, just those little things pop up. And then there's this complete sense of overwhelm. So I know some people offer different advice around this. I'd love for you to laser in on that right now, though, for everyone listening, because it is such a common theme, especially for the female entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah. That word overwhelm comes up again and again and again. Overwhelmed by your business, overwhelmed by all the things you have to do in your home life, overwhelmed by your own to-do list. I like to tell people, stop and take a breath. Overwhelm isn't about having too much to do. It's not knowing where to start. It's when we have all these things swirling around in our heads and we're like, oh, I don't know what to work on next, or I don't know what I should focus on. When we know what to work on next, we have this feeling of confidence and we can step confidently into our leadership. And I think that's really important to understand, that when we start to prioritize how we're spending our time, when we know where we want to start, and when we're going to go next, and the next step after that, we feel so much stronger and so much more confident in the steps that we're making. And that's when that feeling of overwhelm disappears. It really can dissipate and go away, because truly it is the whole idea of all these things swirling around us like a tornado. We're like, Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz with all the things flying around us, and we don't know what to grab first. But if you stop and you prioritize, if you figure out really, truly what is most important, where you want to start your day, where you want to end your day, that's when we feel a little more empowered. That's where we feel more confident. That's where we feel a little bit more intentional with our businesses. And isn't that really what we want?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, I'm going to flip this and now ask you about your business right now. Can you share with everyone, you've been very successful in building this multiple seven-figure company in your own way. You seem still very sane, put together, met your husband. You guys seem to still like each other. I think your kids are not in jail. Like everyone's okay.
It's true.
All looks good. So tell us, how you've used, you seem to eat your own cooking, as we say, So talk about you building your business and your life, like with these principles and how you've done it.
Yeah, I love that question because you're right. My kids are not in prison at this point. And my husband and I have a fabulous relationship. We work across the desk from each other. I like to say that we are together 26 hours a day. We drive carpool together. We go into the office together. He is my CMO. I'm his CEO. And the way it works for us is just fabulous. It really does. It makes us really happy. I think, a lot of times people ask me, well, how is it that you work with your husband without killing him? And I think a lot of it honestly comes down to communication, really having strong communication channels where there are times where I say to him, okay, I need you to take off your husband hat and just be, my CMO and not worry about what that means in my personal life or these kinds of things. Or sometimes I have to say, I need you to take off your business hat and just be my husband right now. So that's one of the ways that we've made that work with our relationship. But with my kids too, this idea of communication has been really important all the way from the start. We touched on this idea earlier of, as I was preparing for the book launch, I was communicating that with my kids. And I think so often we feel like that work compartment and that home compartment are two so separated compartments that we don't want to bring our kids in. And I truly believe that your family is your team, that you need to get support from your team at work and get support from your team at home. Both are really equally important. And truly, when you open up those channels of communication with your team at home, whether that's your kids or your, other members of your family or your significant other, it really allows them to understand what you're going through and what's happening in your world. So they understand when you are stressed out, why you are stressed out. They understand when you have quieter times that you can give them yourself more fully. And they understand these things, and I think that, for me and my team, we do Sunday planning together as a family. So we do team planning where we sit down and we map out what's happening during the week. Okay, Kate, you have volleyball practice on these days. Jack, you've got, play rehearsal on these days. Who has a project due? All right, how are you going to map that out? Because I have my kids map out and kind of goal set for their projects as well. And that way, they are truly in charge of themselves. I like to tell people that, we can bring home the bacon. We can fry it up in a pan. But if the kitchen is burning down around us, it does us no good. Having that stable home base, having that as our foundation that feels good, that feels solid, that's what allows us to go to work and give ourselves fully during work time and to do it guilt-free.
Yeah, so, I know them. Now that my twins are 6, it's really great age because they're starting to understand when we have these meetings, they feel like I'm sharing with them. They understand my week. I understand their week. And then they don't get as upset like when they know that mommy's working or they know when I'll be there or they know that mommy has a big meeting today or, they'll know. Even with little kids, it makes such a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mentioned earlier, I started my first business with kids playing at my feet. I literally would come up with excuses to bring them into my business. I would say things like, oh, you know what? Oh man, I've got this giant stack of invoices I have to go through and every single one of these needs a sticker. I just don't know if I can do this. Well, what do you think they said? Oh, I can help. And I'm like, okay, you can put a sticker on each of these. Now, okay, none of those invoices needed any stickers. I mean, did they need Snoopy stickers? No, absolutely not. They didn't need anybody to color anything on the page, but I made them feel like they were a part of it. And I would say, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. I'm so glad that you are helping me grow my business. This is our family business. And I still refer to it as our family business. They are very much a part of my success. just as, anyone at my office is, because quite frankly, them understanding what's going on and them being able to understand that when mom is busy, they need to do it a little extra with the chores. They need to be a little bit kinder, they need to be a little bit nicer to each other. It really does help. And really having that communication, I think communication solves 1,000 problems in everyone's day. I mean, a lot of times it comes down to, whether that's delegation we're talking about, or, talking to a vendor or any of those things, talking with our teams. It really comes down to clear and open and honest communication about our boundaries, honest communications about our expectations, honest communications about, what it is we want and what we need in our lives and in our businesses. All of that really helps us as a whole. And I think that's really important and something that we need to keep in mind.
So walk everyone through the business that you've built. You're a very unique business because you have both physical products and then you also have, online programs and teaching all around the concepts that you've developed in this whole model. And I think it's interesting for everyone to hear.
Yeah. So I started the business with the physical products. And, knowing that teaching was a big part of who I am, and that's really one of the pillars behind, who I am, we always had it so that the planners came with a series of videos that walk you through not just how to use the products, but how to prioritize. What are the things that are important to you? How are you spending your time? So we always had that element there. And so when we started the business, it was really, I would say 80% products, or physical products, we should say, and then about 20% offerings and services. And so we've been in this really interesting shift. And Allie, you've been amazing working with me. I'm one of Allie's premier clients, and she's been working with me, and we're making that shift of, offering more of the services that I'm really looking for, so that we're shifting that from being so 80-20 to a little more, maybe 80% of these services, and the products are there to support. It is very unique and different. I rarely find somebody who's doing the same thing that I am because it is so different. But really, all it has been is an extension of who I truly am and what I'm passionate about. And this is why when we go through the LiveWell method, I talk about discovery is that first step. It's so important to start with you and what is important to you. What are your superpowers? What are the things that are important to you? What's your North Star? And I define your North Star as your mission, your vision, and your core values. So your mission statement says why you do what you do, not just what you do, but why you do it. Your vision statement says where you want to go, and your core values tell you how you want to get there. And then if you have this idea of, okay, this is my North Star, this is where I'm going long term, you can start to work backwards and really figure out, okay, I'm going to start with physical products. We're going to get to a certain point with that. And then I want to add on, X. So for me, it was the next add-on was doing the podcast. And so I started doing my podcast, started getting people excited about that. Then we started offering some courses. Then we grew it and started offering more things. And so offering the coaching and offering up, all different kinds of things like my new morning momentum that I've just launched. And so it really is this idea of let's look at where you want to go long term and let's back it up. Let's make it bite-sized so that each step is very intentional. I like to say it's like living with unhurried purpose, really understanding your purpose of where you want to go and understanding that each step that you take, no matter how big, no matter how small, is getting you closer to that end destination that you truly want. And it's unique for each person. Everybody is different. What you want is different than what somebody else, maybe even in your same industry, wants. Having that North Star is really one of the things that's allowed me to filter and understand what I want to say yes to, what I want to say no to, because I think both are really important. We don't just want to say no. It's about finding your yeses. That's what allows me to understand this is a yes for me or this is a no. And I think that's helped.
Were you surprised when The Joy of Missing Out, your book, was suddenly getting these huge, accolades from Fortune magazine, Forbes? Were you actually, I know your stuff was good, but were you a little surprised that the business market found this so revolutionary?
Yes, I was. Honestly, I was pleased. I was pleased to see that a business book that's really focused in on women and their whole life, I like to call it your holistic life, in that you're more than just a worker bee, who you are at home and also at work, that was recognized as, one of the top 10 business books of the year. I felt like, we're making big strides here, ladies. We really are
Yeah. Like I knew they'd think it was good, but like for them to get it, I think was what I found so refreshing and
Yeah,
exciting.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I was floored by it because it's not something you can apply for or you can put your name into a hat for. I was I was driving home from Pilates, so I go and I actually work out during my work day because I think it's really important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself on a regular basis. So I was leaving Pilates, driving to my office for a meeting, and I got a text from my publicist who said, "Oh my gosh, Joy of Missing Out was just chosen as one of the top 10 business books of the year." And I texted back, "My book?" She's like, "Yes, your book."
Not another book with
Not
the
another
same
book with
name.
the same name. I was floored. And I was honestly, I feel like it really is. It's our time. This is our time to step into our own personal greatness and into the greatness we have as women. This is one of the things that, with your new venture with the trust and this networking group for women, it really is this idea that when we work together, when we come together to support and encourage each other, when we put out resources that are beneficial for other women to grow and thrive and really step into their own greatness, that is when we as a collective whole can make a huge difference. This is when we can start to make a big dent in that man's world we've been living in. And I don't say that as a bad thing. This is just, kind of how it's been, but this is our opportunity to step into it. And so to see the book recognized, Forbes named it one of the best ways to nail your resolutions, and Fortune magazine and all these different publications, it's starting to feel more like, yes, this is our time. This is our space that we are
Yeah.
ready to step into. And that for me is very exciting, especially as I'm gearing up to write the next book, the follow-up book, where it's like, all right, then let's take it to the next level. Let's keep this momentum going.
Can you share that title or a little bit what that's about yet, or is it
I
too
can't
early?
just yet. I would love to because I am
Okay. I want to say you heard it here first. You know what's interesting now that I think about the timing of this book, you were a bit ahead of your time because I think that, there's so much we could say about what's going on right now. I'm going to hold back most of it because it's like a whole series of shows. But really the reset that is right now, especially for women who have been maybe trying to like go into a job or a play, something that was never a great fit anyway, can use this time to redesign their work and life in the way that they want to. It may be messy in the middle here, but I do think there is going to be a redesign of a lot of the ways that women are working and being with their families. When you think about technology was the first huge leveler because that allowed many women to start businesses from home like us.
Yes.
And be with our family. Even if we had an office, we still could work on the road. We could travel. It just changed everything. Then what happened now is we're being disrupted and seeing different ways we can work that may have not been accessible to us before. I'm actually going to predict the next huge revolution now is going to be in education. Because it's fascinating to me that within 2 weeks now, the whole freaking school system of all school systems of the country have figured out how to teach virtually, which they kept saying they couldn't do. I don't know if I like it yet, by the way, but
Yeah, I'm not fully on board with it just yet.
yeah, it's a little bit, we were joking before the call and I'm like, I think the kids got through their stuff in like 90 minutes. I'm like, okay, I know you guys are smart, but like not like that smart. So they either, like, it brings up all these discussions around the socialization. That's a lot of the day. And which is great, but like, we're just like, how are they going to reinvent this? It's interesting, but we're in this such a turbulent time. And so to flip to the positive of all this, I think everyone's going to do all this redesign. It's a reset, it's redesign. And you were a bit ahead of your time with this, I think, because they're going to be naturally following some of these steps and this is more applicable than ever.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it because I feel like this is the time for the reset. This is the time right now, instead of freaking out about what's going on with our businesses or what's going to happen, this is the time to dig in. Let's take this time to really make our businesses feel intentional, to make our lives feel more full of that unhurried purpose we just talked about, taking the time to figure out what is truly important. I feel like so often we wait until our ship is sinking to figure out what to throw overboard. And right now, with all this going on in the world, our ship feels like it's sinking. And suddenly we're like, oh, don't need to do this, don't need to do that. So let's do that. Let's realize, this is Pareto principle at its greatest right now.
Yeah.
When you think about, and for those of you who don't know, although I know, Allie, you've done a show on Pareto's principle, it's the 80-20 rule. And we dive into that idea in the book that, 20% of our actions result in 80% of the impact that we make. So right now, what's the 20% of your actions that's really making the biggest impact? Let's let go of the trivial many and let's focus in the vital few, because this is how we do less better. This is how we do less with a thriving business that continues to scale and grow. It's not about doing more. It's doing what's most important. When we spread ourselves so thin and we try to do everything, we end up feeling like we've accomplished nothing. So let's use this time as our opportunity to realize these things I threw overboard need to stay overboard. These things in the boat, this is what I want to focus in on.
Where can everyone learn about your book, your courses, your podcast too? Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, so the best place to find anything and everything about me is TonyaDalton.com. So Tonya is with an O and a Y. So TonyaDalton.com. You can find links to my podcast, links to my courses. I'm actually offering a free webinar coming up if you'd like me to share a little bit about that, because I think it might interest your listeners. Yeah, I wrote an article for Entrepreneur Magazine about how I grew my business so that my husband could come and work alongside of me. And I got a really good reaction out of that article. A lot of people started emailing me about the 3 S's that I was talking about. So I've decided I'm going to do a webinar on April 22nd. It's going to be a free webinar about how I grew my business. So kind of the secret formula of how I grew my business to 7 figures while still having a thriving personal life, because I think that is really important to do. So you can find information about that webinar at TonyaDalton.com/webinar. And you can sign up to get that. But it's just going to be a 60-minute webinar. We're going to dive into some real actionable, simple strategies you can start implementing right away in order to really be able to make those steps into intentional, confident leadership. And that's really what we want for women business owners, to feel really good and confident about where we're going.
And by the way, I want to jump in because I've had my nose in a lot of Tonya's stuff, because, working with her closely, and her stuff is solid content. This is not going to be one of those webinars where she spends, 90% showing pictures of herself and talking about her story. You've been on a few of those. You teach really good stuff. We get a sense of who you are. I think it's just perfectly done. We get a sense of who you are, a bit about context, where you're coming from, but you do love to teach. You can't argue with that.
I do. And you know what I don't love?
It'll be good.
I don't love fluff and bullshit. So I try to really get to the actionable strategies, really give people things that when they walk away, they go, okay, I'm ready to move. And so that's what I'm excited about.
Your 3 best, or that sounds so much pressure. I always try to reword it. 3 of your best pieces of advice for everyone as we're wrapping up today, kind of in the context of what we talked about, but also, what everyone should be thinking about in today's times.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I would say my first piece of advice, my best advice, would be rely on your team. Rely on your team at work, rely on your team at home. Really allowing people to understand what you're working on and bringing them in, instead of looking at delegation as, something else you're piling on someone else's plate. Look at it as delegation, as development, as an opportunity to allow others to thrive and grow. I like to say for my team at home, my goal is that when my birds fly my nest, they soar. And that's really what I'm doing when I do my Sunday team planning with my kids and my husband. It's what I'm doing too, though, honestly, at work, when I do my Monday meetings with my team and we talk about where we're going as a group, really relying on your team and not feeling like you have to do it all. So often we think that nobody else can do it as well as we can, right? There's a little bit of perfectionism in there, or that, we're being a burden to someone else. Let's allow others to lift us up, because that is a gift we can give to other people. That's my first one, is to rely on your team. My second one is to take care of you, quite frankly. So often we feel like we are supposed to be taking care of everybody else, when in truth, we need to prioritize taking care of our health, taking care of our self-care, taking care of who we are as women. And that really does allow us to shine our light even brighter and stronger on everyone else. We cannot take care of others if we do not take care of ourselves. So one of the things that I do, I touched on this earlier, is, I go and I do workouts during the workday, because you know what? That's what works for me. I leave work at 3:00 every afternoon to come home and put my mom hat on, because that's what works for me. And that takes care of me. So really prioritizing not just what you have to do at work, but also prioritizing taking care of you. I think that's a really important thing, and something that we as business owners a lot of times think is just, that is fluff or that's extra, when really you are the center point of your business. You are what drives that momentum and pushes it forward. So taking care of you really allows your business to thrive. And then my third piece of advice is to step away from your business. I know people are probably like, what? But I do. I step away from my business on a regular, schedule. At least once a year, I go on an unplugged vacation where I'm out of touch for my team. I'm out of touch with everybody except for usually my husband, or if it's a family unplugged vacation, my husband and my kids. And really, when we step away from our businesses, that's a great opportunity to check to make sure our systems are running, to make sure that our teams feel empowered to make decisions without you. It really allows you to get yourself out of being the bottleneck. Because I think so often, especially if you are the founder and the CEO, we are bottlenecking all day long because we're like, oh, it's like my little baby. I want to make sure everything is taken care of. You're just getting in everybody else's way. So making sure that you are regularly stepping away from your business so it can thrive without you. Because here's the truth, those business owners who brag that they've never paid themselves or they haven't gone on vacation for 5 years are doing nothing more than just killing themselves. There's no reason for it. Isn't
it funny too? Sometimes magic happens when you take that time off.
Oh my gosh.
Just magical things can happen. Like when I'll go on a real vacation, the team will be like, oh my God, we got more leads than we've ever gotten from you doing nothing. Like it must be an energetic thing. It's just, maybe it's that detachment.
I think it is. I think it's too that you're not hovering over anything and they're just really able to do what they want. They're really able to stretch their wings, right? And to be able to do what they want to do. But the other thing is, I know that I come back re-energized, re-excited, reignited for what I want to do. And a lot of times during these white space vacations that I go on, I come back with the best ideas, the things that have really, truly moved the needle forward because I'm not stressing during that time. I'm fully relaxing and then it comes to me. And then I'm able to come back and be ready to go move forward on it. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I look forward to when we can all take a vacation again.
I know. It'll be nice to travel once again. I agree.
Actually, what's exciting right now is like there's all these travel deals, and the airlines are like, no change fees. So you may as well book something, everybody, if you're thinking about it. Even by the time you listen to this, if you can't, you may not be able to travel yet, but maybe hopefully book something. Just start dreaming about it again and thinking about how you will prepare your business or team to allow you to do that. Now is the time to put all that together, put the systems together, work with your team more closely. All these are great tips, Tonya. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we hope to have you on again soon, and good luck with the webinar. And we can't wait to find out what the next book is.
Thank you so much. I'm really on fire with this next book that I'm writing. So I can't wait to share more.
Okay, good. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get new shows every week. And I'd love if you left us a review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other platforms. And I'd love to hear from you. Come join the conversation online. You'll mostly find me on Instagram, but also on Facebook, Twitter, and more. Just head to alliebrown.com. You will find them all there. And you can also learn about upcoming opportunities to meet in person. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you've tuned in.